As advertised, joining us on line number 10 is the VP of the Lower Churchill Project, Gilbert Bennett. Good morning, Gilbert. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty. How are you today?
Stuffed up, but feeling pretty good. How about you?
Not too bad. Just wanted to check in and just talk about labor and hiring for a little while. There's a lot of, I guess there's a lot of context and I guess a lot of other considerations that are worth talking about. Maybe I'll start at the high level. I mean, just looking at the numbers, 87% of the workforce that's building Muskrat Falls and the associated transmission residents of the province. So I think, you know, at the highest level, we've collectively, we and the other mega project developers have been successful in hiring Newfoundlanders and Labradorians to work on our projects here in the province. And while there are, you know, a couple of trades where we have shortages, the vast numbers of workers are residents of our province. When we look beyond that, one of the, I guess there are a number of challenges in terms of developing the workforce. Here in Labrador, put a lot of effort into training and getting people, you know, with the basic skills to work on the project. I think one of the difficult challenges, though, is that when you look at a project, it goes through a number of phases. So we spent a fair bit of time doing preliminary work, getting basic infrastructure in place, and now we're moving into large volumes of concrete that had to be poured. When we have a change in the workforce, and we have a change in the project requirements, rather, we have to adjust the workforce. And the skills that are needed to do that are different than potentially people we have today.
I understand that. And I mean, there's big conversation province-wide with all levels of companies like yourselves and Newfoundland Power. I was a moderator of a panel the other day for the Employers Council, and we talked about apprentices and preparedness to work and productivity and what have you. But when we have a benefits agreement in place, and that is the document that should rule the day on the hiring. We've had conversations with representatives of the Aboriginal community as to whether or not they're getting the first crack as designated in the benefits agreement. We have people concerned with whether or not subcontractors that are hired bring their entire workforce with them or the vast majority of it. We have people who are saying that they are trained, experienced people in a variety of fields in Labrador who cannot get work on the Muskrat Falls site. So are we living up to the letter of the law, so to speak, inside the benefits agreement?
Absolutely. The benefits agreement is contained in the collective agreements for the project.
Right.
So, you know, the process is straightforward. I think where we do have probably more conversations is about whether somebody is actually qualified. And when we look for somebody who's qualified in the apprenticeable trades, we look for somebody having a journey person certification.
Right.
And if they're not a journey person and the contractor wants a journey person, then we have a disconnect. Now, there are requirements for apprentices in the apprenticeable trades, or ratios, minimum, maximum ratios, but ultimately the determination of the skills that are required for a job have to be made by the contractor. And not everybody always agrees with the determination of qualifications. That's a challenge. Somebody says, I'm qualified to do this or that. I'm qualified to do carpentry. Lots of people are handy. But if the contractor needs a journey person carpenter and the individual in question doesn't have a ticket, then ultimately they're not qualified.
Do we have a disconnect across the country, province to province, as to what level of training, what level of training constitutes a red seal, and is it transferable between every province on various trades?
It is. Those are interprovincial tickets.
Right, okay. So when people speak out, whether it be Mr. Shikapesh representing the Aboriginal people of Labrador, whether it be Yvonne Jones, are they just plain and simply wrong about their take on what is actually going on with the hiring practices and the firing practices, as Ms. Jones points out, with 5 mechanics let go, 4 were from Labrador? Do the benefits agreements transfer from hiring all the way through firings to ensure that we have the quotas kept up to standard?
Right. Those provisions are in the collective agreement as well.
Okay.
Now, ultimately, if somebody has a dispute about the collective agreement, right, the recourse is probably not to call Yvonne, but to deal with the collective agreement, and the mechanisms are in there to deal with that. Right. That's if there's grounds for a grievance, then those dispute resolution mechanisms are in the collective agreement. Right. The unions understand, contractors understand, we all understand the dispute resolution processes are there, and ultimately, if somebody makes a mistake and misses the determination provisions that are in the collective agreement, then that has to be fixed. The way to fix that is through using the collective agreement, using the dispute resolution tools that are there.
What about when it comes down to we know this process is abused across the country, how do we confirm if someone is actually from Labrador and living in Labrador as opposed to they have access to a mailbox and a mailing address in Labrador?
Well, they're going to be living in Labrador because they won't be in the camp.
Oh, it's as simple as that. Okay.
If they're in Happy Valley Goose Bay, that's a clear case. You say you live in Happy Valley Goose Bay, you're going to be picked up by the boss in Happy Valley Goose Bay.
Right, but Labrador's a big place, so there could be people. Big place. Yeah, okay, sorry, go ahead.
If somebody says, yes, I live in Black Tickle or I live in Labrador City Wabush, then quickly you're going to get to the question, well, where are you flying from? That information gets used. You're going to get picked up and dropped off from where you live. And, I don't think that one's a major problem. At the end of the day, the relative population in Labrador compared to the population on the island is fairly small. But 1/3 of the workforce is from Labrador. We have 1,050 out of about 3,000 people who are residents of Labrador working on the project. In our September benefits report.
Yeah, and I read it. When you talk about the subcontractors being brought in, and it's up to them to gauge whether or not someone has enough experience to work inside of their operation, which of course they have to hit their budget when they fix price contracts, so productivity and experience will play an active role. Are they committed to standby benefits agreements? So if and when they say, I'm bringing my workers from Nova Scotia or from Quebec or whatever the case may be, does that exempt them from any of the protections afforded in the benefits agreement?
Nope. They have to specify the requirements. Now, so if I look at Villard, for example, and they say we're doing foundation installation, it's legitimate for them to say, I need individuals who have X years experience doing that work, because they have to do quality work at the end of the day.
Yep.
Right? So they say, I need people who have demonstrated experience installing tower foundations. Then, well, what they'd have to do is say that first. And if the workers come out of the province, because that's all they can get, then that's what they do. Now, Villard, interestingly enough, has a large workforce who are residents of our province who have worked elsewhere on other projects, and those folks are coming home, but they are residents of Newfoundland and Labrador.
So your message to Mr. Shekapesh, Yvonne Jones, and others who have talked about the hiring practices and the firing practices, beyond they are using the wrong mechanism, if they're all available inside the collective bargaining and the benefits agreement, what do you say to the folks who bring up these issues, thinking they're doing the right thing to represent their constituents?
I think it's important that they do, and particularly with respect to members of Innu Nation, the Labrador Innu, we have a lot of support resources in place. We have an employment coordinator who screens every hire that happens for the project to see if qualified Innu are available to take on those roles. We have ongoing relationships with Innu Nation. We have employment coordinators on site who are, there to help day to day with issues that come up, including, issues with the collective agreement, knowing how to navigate that process. And there's a lot of effort going into the relationship with Innu Nation and the Labrador Innu. A lot of focus on training, a lot of focus on getting people into the distribution of workers where we can help them get experience. So LATP, for example, has run tower steel assembly and formwork and rebar courses so that we can get some of those entry-level positions. Because we know there are some. There aren't unlimited roles, but there are some, and we're getting people onto the job.
And I guess that would be the ultimate summary message. I appreciate the clarification and your time this morning, Mr. Bennett.
No problem. Thanks so much, Patty.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. Gilbert Bennett, VP of the Lower Churchill Project. So people wanted to talk about the hiring and firing practices you've heard directly from Nalcor and the gentleman responsible for the project.